Hi everyone, my name is Pan and welcome to an edition of Bluebird Corner, a new podcast dedicated to Cardiff City fans. We're going to actually start by reviewing a season once a week, starting from the 1980-81 season. And the reason we're doing that is that was the year I started going down the city. My granddad lived in Wellfield Road in Canton, and he was one of the first people to take me down on the Bob Bank, got me a season ticket. And from that moment on, I fell in love with the club. So every week we're going to review a season. We're going to look at all the players, the manager, the owner, and go into detail on how we got on that season. So hopefully it'll be of some of interest for fans of my vintage or a bit older, and also maybe the younger fans who were, be quite intrigued in what it was like back in the day when we were used to standing up, and obviously the facilities were pretty poor compared to today, but obviously we love them all the same. So before we do that, I just want to let you know that everyone who likes and subscribes Bluebird Corner can have a great chance to win a prize. It's a £250 restaurant pub voucher, and you can use it at a number of restaurants and pubs in South Wales. So like and subscribe Bluebird Corner to get in with a chance of winning. Thank you to our sponsors, Top Tier Cleaning, number one for domestic and commercial cleaners in South Wales, for providing the prize. So yeah, we're going to have a look at the 80-81 season just to give you some background. Leading up to that season, we finished 15th in Division 2, which is the championship in today's money. The end of the previous season, we finished just above Wrexham. We are averaging about 11,000, which is pretty good in the day. So we did reasonably well, and obviously we went into the following season hoping we'd make an improvement on that. Now, our manager was Richie Morgan, a Cardiff-born lad who played for City in the 60s, between 66 and 77. He made 68 appearances for Cardiff City. You may ask why in those 11 years he only averaged about 6 games a season. Well, the main reason was he had a player called Don Murray in front of him, and Don was a brilliant defender, made over 400 appearances for Cardiff City, and was in the famous 1971 City team that beat Real Madrid at New Park 1-0. So fair dues to Richie for staying at the club and being loyal, even though we had a better player really in front of him. But Richie was proud as punch when he got the manager's job. As I said, he's a local lad, and our owner at the time, or chairman, sorry, at the time, was Bob Grogan. He owned Kenton Utilities, and Bob paid off £1 million debt that we had at that time to save the club. That's about 7 million in today's money. And one shareholder said to Bob, you must be mad to have paid off that debt. And quick as a flash, Bob said, well, I'm mad of loving Cardiff City, and that's all that matters. So fair dues to Bob Grogan, who saved the club from administration by paying off that debt. So we went into that season. Obviously, we had some trouble off the field. But as regards to on the field, what we're going to do is we'll look at all the players in the squad, and then kind of look at the season in detail, kind of review our performance. So I'm going to put a photo up of the actual squad from 1980 to 81. We're going to look at each player from the top left and go across to the right, all the way down to the bottom. So the first player, top left there, you may be able to see, is a guy called Mark Elliott. Some of these guys, I've got to be honest. I mean, when I was doing this, I was thinking I couldn't remember. So you might find some of these players you can't remember. Some players you'll think, yeah, he's my favourite player. But Mark Elliott, he was born in Merthyr. He played 6 or 7 games for City in total. And he ended his career at Inter Cardiff in 1995. So he was a bit of a bit part player. I never remembered him, to be honest. Then from him is Keith Pontin. Keith was born in Pontyclun. He played for Cardiff over 193 times, and he ended his career at Barry Town in 91. Now, Keith played for Wales on a couple of occasions. Sadly, he passed away age 64. And, sad story really with Keith. He was a pretty good defender, really, very good in the air. And he had dementia age 59. And when he passed away, they did a post-mortem. And basically, it was proven in the post-mortem that, his dementia was probably caused from the amount of times he headed the ball. So that was a pretty sad story there with Keith. The next along there is Kevin Davis. I got no history on Kevin, so apologies for that. Maybe someone on this pod will let me know. Please put your comments on there. Next, we've got Wayne Hughes. He's born in Port Talbot, played 40-odd games for City, ended his career at Yeovil in 1985. I don't know if someone actually mentioned to me that if Wayne set up a sportswear company in Ely, I might be wrong, but someone mentioned it. Because my lad, we went along, and I'm sure there was an ex-Cardiff City player who owns like a sports gear place, maybe a factory outlet or something, providing a lot of kits there for local parksides. Next is Dave Roberts from Southampton. He played over 40 games for City before going on to Hong Kong. Then we go down to the next row. Next player there on there is Paul Maddy from Cwm Carn. He played 43 games for City and ended his career at Ebervale in 93. Paul was a local lad. He was with the youth from a young age. Next along there, we've got Paul Davis. He was born in Kidderminster, and he only played a couple of games for City. But he actually, as he was a Kidderminster lad, he was at Kidderminster for mainly the rest of his career. He played over 650 games for them. So next along there, we've got the legend that is Phil Dwyer, born in Grangetown, played 575 games for City, beating Tom Farquharson's record for appearances. He scored 41 goals from defence, which is pretty good. And his nickname was Joe. So a lot of fans, older fans, actually, before I started going down, they were calling him Joe. Go on, Joe. And the reason that was that his resemblance to a famous Evertonian player called Joe Royle, who actually, some of you might remember, went on to manage Everton in sort of the early mid-90s. Then you've got Gary Stevens. Gary was born in Birmingham. He played 150 games for City, scoring 44 goals. So about 1 in 3 return. And he ended his career at Wellington in 2018. Next, then you've got Peter Grotier. He was born in Stratford, played 40 games for City in goal. And a little story about Peter. He appeared on the TV Repair Shop in 2003. And he asked for his West Ham Santos program to be repaired, which was signed by Pele. So anyone who's come across that program might have seen that episode. Next, we've got Ron Healy. He was a favourite of mine back in the day. I think I was always looking at players who were playing for international side. I always remember looking in the program. I think he had it down as Republic of Ireland or Errors, they were known then, and I think he had a couple of games for them. And Ron played way over 200 games for City, and he sadly passed away while he was cycling, and that was about 7 years ago, age 65. John Lewis was born in Tredegar, over 140 games for City, and he ended his career, I think he was coaching at Merthyr. I'm pretty sure John played for Merthyr in the 1987 game against Atalanta I think it was a Cup Winners' Cup or something. It was that famous victory at Penderyn Park, 2-1. I'm pretty sure John was there during that time. Next, we've got Rod Thomas. Rod was born in Neath. He played 100 games for City and was capped 50 times by Wales. Most of his caps actually was while he was at Swindon, and where he actually won the League Cup with them in 1969. And he also played for Derby County, where he won the actual Premier League title or First Division title, as it was known then, in 1975. So I think, when Rod came to us, it was near the back end of his career. I don't think he had any more Welsh caps when he was with City from sort of 77. Then I've got Andrew Wood. So sorry, I've got no info on him. So if anyone's got any details, please let me know. Next, we've got John Buchanan. So John was probably my favourite player that season. He's born in Scotland. He played over 230 games for City. From the midfield, scored 54 goals, which is a great record from midfield. He included that incredible 35-yard plus strike against the Jacks at home, which I think was the goal that made the game 3-3. I think we were losing that 3-1, and his goal right at the death in the last few minutes got us a draw. So John, had a tremendous shot on him, and I said pretty good goal return really from midfield.
Next, we've got Lyndon Jones. Lyndon was born in Utica. He played 145 times for the City. Also played for Newport and Reading. Lyndon was a tough tackling right back, now age 64. Then you've got Taki Micallef, son of a Greek restaurateur owner. Taki was born in Grangetown, played 81 times for City, many as a sub, and he ended up working for the Welsh National Opera as a technician. Then you got Alan Campbell. Alan was born in Scotland. He was a central midfielder. Alan had a successful career at Charlton and Birmingham. He was part of the Birmingham team who went to the First Division and FA Cup semi-final and played 3 seasons in Division 1. He signed for City for 20,000 and later went on to work for Land Rover. Then you've got Steve Grapes. Steve was born in Norwich, started his career at Norwich. And City signed him in 96 for £7,000. He ended his career at Bath, now age 72.
Next, we've got Billy Ronson. Billy was born in Fleetwood, played over 90 games for City, ended his career in the States. He played there for about 13 years, and he passed away in 2015, age 58, sadly. Ray Bishop is next. He was born in Hengoed. He played over 100 games for City, scored 26 goals. And when he retired, he moved on to Torquay later in his career. He became a very, very successful property developer in the West Country. And then we've got Colin Sullivan. Colin was born in Cornwall. He played over 60 games for City. And I always remember Colin Sullivan. I don't know why. He was always a name that stuck in my head when he signed for City. And at the time, I was really excited. I thought, we've got another England international. Bear in mind we were in the old Division 2 or Championship. But it turned out, when I look back now, he actually played for England under 23. So, I was getting excited thinking that this guy was, a really top player. But, he only played for the under 23s. Then we've got Paul Giles. Paul was from Grangetown, and his older brother David obviously played for City. He went to Fitzallen School, and he played for the City 24 times. Paul spent most of his career in the Welsh League, and I think he ended his career as manager of Dinas Powys in the 80s. There's a story about Paul and Dave, which Dave's mentioned many times before, and I think it was when Paul's brother David was playing for Crystal Palace, and I think Paul Giles was supposed to be marked. I think Alan Mullery was the manager of Crystal Palace, and he tasked Billy Gilbert to mark Paul. But David actually said to Mullery that I'll mark him, and he actually took his brother out during the game, which resulted in him suffering ankle ligament damage. And thankfully, he was only out for a month. But Dave, I think he's quite apologetic when he looks back at that story. I think Paul's forgiven him for that. So we're gonna, as I said, that's the squad. You might, obviously for the younger fans, I think what's interesting, isn't it, when you look at it, how many local lads there are, in the South Wales area. They weren't massive squads during the day, but we certainly had, at least 50-60% of them were sort of local lads. So it was definitely it definitely felt like your club during that time, really, with, as I said, a few lads who were born down the road in Grangetown, and quite a few lads born in the South Wales area. So a lot of City fans who went down, they're really affiliated with the players. So, as I said, we went into the 80 season. First game was against Blackburn Rovers at home, and we didn't get off to a good start, really. We actually lost the game at home 2-1 with Gary Stevens scoring the only goal for City, played in front of 6,900 fans. City recovered quickly in the next game, beating Wrexham 1-0 away in front of just under 8,000 fans with a Ray Bishop goal. And after defeat away to Oldham and at home against Orient, City went to Newcastle and lost 2-1 with a goal from Peter Kitchen in front of 15,000 fans. City then drew at home to Bolton and beat Bristol Rovers with goals from Billy Ronson and Ponting. And at that point, City had lost 3 of 7 games and was sitting sort of upper mid-table. So it was an average-ish start to the season. But City only went on to win 1 of their next 5 games, and that was against Watford with Taki Mikolev, who was signed during that season. Taki was a local lad, Greek Cypriot heritage, a bit like my grandparents. So I also have had an attachment to Taki, even though Taki, he wasn't I'd call him an average player, but he gave his all, and he used to come on quite often as a sub. One of the defeats that we had was away to West Ham, and that was 1-0 in front of 20,000 fans. Steve Grapes scored the winner in the next game at home to QPR before City went on a losing streak of their next games, including sort of Chelsea at home 1-0. And then we sort of went on a 3-game running streak, beating Wrexham, Blackburn and Luton, with Peter Kitchen scoring 3 goals. City then had 6 consecutive draws, most notably the 3-3 draws I mentioned against the Jacks with Buchanan's wonder strike. Just a little story there. I left the ground when we were 3-1 down. I think I was just thinking, I'm pig sick about this. Walked back to my grandparents' house with my mate, and I think I left the grounds maybe 9-10 minutes to go and got home to find out we'd equalised, obviously, and scored 2 goals. So I actually missed Buchanan's goal, so I was actually gutted. And then obviously we went down to 4 consecutive defeats that followed before we beat Newcastle at home in front of only 4,000 fans. So by that stage, we were really down the lower reaches of the league, and it became pretty desperate, really. So that was really disappointing. No wins in our next 5 before beating Chelsea 1-0 away, with Gary Stevens scoring the win in front of 11,000 fans. So after that win, I think a lot of City fans were optimistic we'd stay out of the bottom 3. But sadly, we never won any of our next 5 games, including Preston, who were down at the bottom at home. We lost 3-1, and Bristol City at home 3-2 with Gary Mabbott. Some of you may remember Gary. Gary went on to play and have a really successful career at Tottenham Hotspur. So it all came down to the last game of the season at home to West Ham. West Ham were at the top end of the table, so a lot of fans were nervous. Preston were away at Derby, and we needed to win, but we sort of, it was one of those games where it was really nerve-wracking, but we scraped home to a 0-0 draw, and it actually turned out, that Preston beat Derby 2-1, but it wasn't enough. And I think it was just on goal difference that we ended up 4th from bottom. I think we were in 19th, because in those days there was 22 sides in the league, not 24. So we actually stayed up on goal difference, and Preston ended up 3rd from bottom, even though they got the victory at Derby. I think they needed to score 3 or 4 goals during that game. And believe it or not, the 2 bottom sides were the Bristol sides, Bristol Rovers and Bristol City. So I don't think that's ever happened again. West Ham were crowned champions that year, with Notts County second. And that was the season that John Toshak was obviously in charge of Swansea City. And they finished third. Again, they were fortunate to go up on goal difference instead of Blackburn Rovers. And it was 3 automatic places up that season. And just to give you an idea, I mean, you know, and some of the younger fans might be surprised by this, but Chelsea were actually 12th that season, and Newcastle were actually, I think, 12th or 13th or 14th. So, you know, there were some big clubs in that league. So we just scraped from relegation. So, I mean, as I said, the season before, 15th, Bob had paid off a lot of debt, so there wasn't really money to invest inside. I think that season we did sign Peter Kitchen for 100,000 from Fulham. Billy Ronson, I think, was signed the season before for 130,000, and I think we had Ronnie Moore, who was at the club. He actually, I think, left to go to Rotherham. I mean, Ronnie's goal scoring record as a striker wasn't great. I mean, I think he scored about 6 goals for City in 50 odd games. He ended up going to Rotherham and scored some like 50, 60 goals in 100 odd appearances. So he was a northern lad. So I think it was ideal for him going to Rotherham, but he didn't really do it for City. But yeah, that was the season, 1980 to 81. Be interested to hear what you think of that season. Was there any particular players that you were your favourites? What did you think the season? Where did you stand? Did you have a season ticket? And yeah, we're going to look back, as I said, every week a season. Next week we're going to do the 81-82 season, and it'd be great to hear your thoughts on the season you went down the City. And, you know, obviously, if you want me to do a program about maybe the season you went down, you know, and maybe if it was before that, I'd certainly do that. But thank you for watching. As I said, like and subscribe to the channel to be in the chance of winning that £250 voucher. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week going through the 1981-82 season. Take care.